I follow the Church, I follow the popes. I'm interested in what the Church teaches. And when Archbishop, let me explain something here. When Archbishop Lefebvre uses the year 1958, you will always see with the Society of St. Pius X or Archbishop Lefebvre, they will always tell you 1958, 1958, 1958. Now, they are not sedevacantists, definitely not. And it would be slander to call them sedevacantists. They are not. They pray for the Pope every day in their chapels, publicly, and I'm a witness to that because I have done it in their chapels for them.
I'm a witness also.
Yes. And the reason why Archbishop Lefebvre says 1958 is for practical reasons. The changes in the Church did not come about 1958, period. The liturgical changes started in Germany 1917, in the United States 1920s, 1930s. In Austria in the 1930s they said Mass in the vernacular versus populum, towards the people. The actual changes in the Missale Romanum started under Pius XII, when in 1949 Holy Week was destroyed, in my eyes destroyed, but it's substantially there.
Why do you say Holy Week was destroyed? What happened?
Just a second, let's first answer the 1958 question. And then, of course, there was the 1962 Missal, and 1965 Missal, and 1967 Missal, and then you had the new Mass of Paul VI in 1969, 1970 edition. You had the vernacular versions come out in 1974 following, and now they're talking about another reform, just like in the old days, 1517 Germany, with the Herr Dr. Martin Luther. And so the changes came about gradually, needless to say. The point why Archbishop Lefebvre always says 1958 is very simple. Until 1958, there was not one official church document that was wrong. Pope Pius XII never wrote anything that was wrong, as far as I can judge, and I'm not just referring to my own judgment. After that, with John the 23rd coming in and ridiculous documents like Pacem in Terris, things started to change. So they're not reliable anymore. And 1958 is a good way for the people who do not want to go into the details of all the history of the changes to remember. It's very practical for them to remember 1958 as the date of the change, so they know if a church document is dated before 1958 they can trust it. If it's dated after 1958 it might still be right, but they cannot trust it. And that is why 1958 was used as the it's always used by Archbishop Lefebvre and by the Society of St. Pius X. Now, Holy Week, see, you have to be very careful about that. Some people, I recorded a tape last year, and some people quoted me saying that I do not celebrate the Mass of 1962, and they said, very good, Father Hesse does not celebrate the Mass of 1962, because the Mass of 1962 is definitely not the Mass of St. Pius V. Wrong again. Wrong again. I just said that the official changes, printed changes in the Missal, changes that would make you doubt that the rule of St. Pius V was kept, started in 1949. I would never say that 1962 is unacceptable. And I can explain to you in very, very shortly and very simply why the Society of St. Pius X, namely Archbishop Lefebvre, decided to use the 1962 Missal. There are rules. There are rules in the Church. And one of the highest rules in moral theology is that self-defense will always be content with the minimum necessary in order to get rid of the situation you want to get rid of. See, if somebody calls you an idiot, you can't shoot him for that. Like at the same time, if I see a woman is raped on the other sidewalk, I can't say, honey, I'll be back in an hour from now. I have to act right now. There are rules to self-defense. When Archbishop Lefebvre consecrated 4 bishops in 1988, he knew he was not going to live for long anymore. Matter of fact, he made it until 1991. And he knew the moment he realized that Rome was going to trick him into something, he decided on acting right now in self-defense. At the same time, if he claims the rules of self-defense, then he has to stick to the rules of self-defense. The 1962 Missal, according to Archbishop Lefebvre, according to Father Schmidberger, who was his successor as the Superior General, and according to my own view, is the last acceptable book. Because after that, the changes were visibly too many and too drastic to make it credible that you're talking about the same missal and the same book and the same Mass. However, I am not bound to these laws of self-defense. And what Pius XII did with Holy Week is something that I cannot accept. If a future Pope was going to say, Father Hesse, you will say the Mass of 1962, I will say, yes, sir, and do it. With a bleeding heart, but I will do it. Because it's acceptable. If he was to say to me, you're going to celebrate the Mass of 1967, or you're going to celebrate the new Mass, I will say, Your Holiness, you do not have the competence to say this because of what I explained earlier. The Pope is bound. And I think he's